Hey, somebody's got to find Kevin's guitar pick. You did? Excellent. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. You are listening to the Professional Noticer. Here, you and I will use common sense and all the wisdom we can muster to move beyond what is true and go all the way to the truth. With actual listeners in more than 100 countries, I am the Professional Noticer. Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Andrews. Hey, thank you for making me a part of your week. My purpose here today, and with every show we do, is to play the part of a best friend or coach. I want to help you live the life you would live by giving you access to the greatest mentors the world has to offer today. Our sponsor this week is Kamado Joe. So let me ask you, have you ever been in the middle of something that you just love doing, but you're frustrated by the quality of whatever it is you're using to do it? I mean, maybe it didn't break, but it just doesn't work like it could. Perhaps you already have a ceramic grill, like the one I gave to my church. Maybe it's a big one. It's the wrong color, but you're the only one who can lift the lid to check on dinner. Heck, not even your 13-year-old boy can lift it. And yeah, when you look at the back, the hinge does look like something a kid made in high school shop class. And some years ago, this was pretty much the realization a couple of guys had about grilling. I know both these guys. They love to grill. They grilled all the time. Weekend after weekend, however, they'd be a bit disappointed by their grills, especially when they couldn't lift the lid up and it burned whatever they were cooking. But as it turned out, these guys had the ability that allowed them to design and develop a better grill. And the circumstances were perfect for them to bring that grill to us, the Kamado Joe, in all its sizes and with all its specialized tools, and its counterbalanced stainless steel hinge. Yep, even with the Big Joe, a 10-year-old can lift the lid to fully open using a single finger. No kidding. Kamado Joe is not just a line of products. Kamado Joe, the world's best ceramic cooker. Check out KamadoJoe.com or anywhere fine grills are sold. Observations and answers. That's what we do here on the Professional Noticer, and usually I'm the one that gives the observations, and we just punt for answers sometimes. But today we have Kevin Williams with us, really the observation king. We're so glad you are here.
I'm glad to be here. This is very cool.
If you're saying, now, where have I seen Kevin before? Mike Rowe does look like Kevin. Okay, I'll get that get that out of your head.
I'm sorry, Mike.
Out of your head. But Kevin is the band leader, sometimes musical director of the Gaither vocal band and the Gaither Homecoming series. And I know him. Kevin is a professional smartass. That's how I know him best. And we
put that on a resume.
Yeah, wow. Baby, that'll get you at work. We were talking. As Matt is going around and setting the lights and setting the microphones and everything, and I was just laughing, thinking, I don't know that you and I have ever been around each other that we lack for conversation.
No, and I love the trivia games. We're both Andy Griffith buffs.
Huge.
I love that when you
sure, Mike. Sure.
And then I've always been around country music growing up, and that's where I met you. Was at Nashville Now, which was a TV show years ago with Ralph Emery.
Isn't that amazing? Because you were with Steve Warner.
Yeah, I was hanging out with Steve. I never played in that band, but gosh, a good friend, and then got to see you do what you do. And so I always, I'll say, do you remember when? And so. So we always play games. So I've got a little.
Well, you're like a music historian too.
Well, I love that stuff, and
I remember words and stuff. You remember music and
licks. Who played on what and who. It's always important to me, the story behind the thing,
right.
And all that stuff. So I give you one. I came prepared here.
Cats in the Cradle.
No? Very good.
No?
It's the right key, but it's not.
That first thing you did. That sounded like Cats in the Cradle to me.
And it could also be a Jim Croce kind of thing.
That's right. Save time in a bottle.
Yeah,
okay.
Right. So, that's for another show.
Okay.
But anyway, so I wanted to give you this because I'll tell you an interesting little thing, but I don't know if you'll know what this is. And then the electric guitar went. You remember that at all?
Yes.
You know what that was?
I do remember that.
It's Merle Haggard. Does that help you? So
the prison, the 21 turned 21 in prison.
Mama tried.
Yeah.
So, and Merle, of course, one of the greatest songwriters. But you wouldn't sing it, would you? I mean, I've heard you do Merle. You don't know the words to it, do you?
I would sing it, but not in my voice. I can't. I'm way too embarrassed to use my voice because I can't sing.
So be Merle. Channel Merle.
Okay.
Channel your inner Merle.
Okay. I'm
gonna do the intro, and then
first of all, how's it start?
Your part is first thing I remember knowing. He talks about a train.
Lonesome was blood.
I give you the lyric if you don't remember.
All right.
It'll come to you. Your turn. First thing.
First thing I remember knowing
Was it lonesome?
was the lonesome whistle blowing and a youngin's dream of growing up to ride
On a freight train.
on a freight train leaving town, not knowing where I'm bound. No one could change my mind, but Mama tried.
Sing the chorus.
I turned 21 in prison doing life without parole. No one could steer me right, but Mama tried. Mama tried to raise me better, but her pleading I denied. Leaves only me to blame, 'cause Mama tried.
Yeah. I love it. We just did that.
Yeah, man.
Now, here's the trivia for you.
Okay.
Do you know who played those two guitar parts on the original cut? So there was
Harry
this-
Chapin, Jim Croce.
Harry Chapin Carpenter.
Yeah.
No, it was actually so this, as I recall, was James Burton. And if you're a guitar player, you know who that is. You might not know who that is.
I don't know. Who is that?
He played in Elvis's band in the 70s, and all those great videos of Elvis in
Really?
the 70s that you saw. The electric guitar player, the lead guitar player, was James Burton. Played on Suspicious Minds and all those great things. And he and a good old Mississippi boy too.
Polly will be happy to know that.
Yes, he. So James played for Ricky.
Skaggs, Van Shelton,
No.
Martin,
Oh my gosh, Nelson, Ricky Nelson.
Ricky Nelson. Oh.
Years ago. So
Ozzie
I
and
think that was
Harriet.
him. And this part,
How old are you?
to my knowledge, was Glenn Campbell. On the
Really?
original. Glenn was part of the whole session, the A-team out there in L.A., and so he would get subbed in onto sessions. And if I'm not mistaken, the acoustic part on that isn't that great?
Yeah, there were a bunch of those guys then that kind of were, they were Chet Atkins aficionados because there was Jerry Reed, Glenn Campbell, a lot of those guys right then that could really just flat play.
Oh, absolutely.
And now nobody's left but you. It's just you. You're the only one that can play.
I'm petrified, but that's,
So, did you
I'm
know?
glad to be with you here today.
I'm
I
thrilled.
didn't know what this was going to be. I sailed into Wisdom Harbor last night in my little dinghy.
Yes.
And I parked it out here, and I was just looking for a Waffle House this morning, and here comes Andy.
We got Waffle Houses just on every dock here. Here at Wisdom Harbor. I've asked you there. Yeah. Man, what are you working on? First of all, I'm so excited about the United We Stand. I've actually got one right here.
Thank
and
you.
let me just say,
Thank you.
I've listened to it a bunch of times. I know we're going to put on this podcast, we'll put a link to your website, okay, and attach a link. But this one,
It's
I don't
different
know.
for me.
You've done a ton of them,
Yeah.
but this is different.
It is different, and I'll have a new hymns project coming out soon. I'll have a Gaither collection coming out. We've done bluegrass hymns. We've done all kinds of things in the past, and I like all styles of guitar. We've been over that, but this was a passion project for me. I know you are a patriot at heart as well as myself, and so we did all of the classic patriotic songs, everything from America the Beautiful to My Country 'Tis of Thee. We did God Bless America, God Bless the USA, Lee's wonderful song, And then we did all of the military themes of every branch of the military. And so it was really interesting to get to do. It's quite orchestrated.
Yeah,
it's got
so-
an anthem feel to it, and I like that.
People are really using this.
Well, that's been the interesting part.
You weren't really expecting that. That kind of Steve Gatlin kind of sprang that on you, and it was such an idea that everybody kind of jumped on board. Tell us about that.
Steve and Larry and Rudy Gatlin are the sons of a wonderful Marine who is in his 90s.
Right.
And he inspired Steve, I think, to call up and say, hey, if I have if I want to donate some of these, could you get them in the hands of veterans? We'd like to say thanks to the veterans who've served our country, put their lives on the line for us. I never served. My dad did for 10 years. And I, to my knowledge, I never said thank you for serving. Thank you for buying my freedom. Now, I knew to say thank you for a lot of things in my life, but I don't ever recall saying that to my dad before he passed. And wouldn't this be a nice way to say that? So Steve had a great idea, and he bought over 100 units, I would say that. And so he kind of challenged my thinking. And I thought, well, maybe others would want to do this too. So I need to have a way to get these to veterans, and we've partnered with a wonderful organization called Reboot. And they work with veterans who have gone through PTSD and are dealing with that. They have a great organization nationwide, and so we'll be able to give them either CDs or download cards, depending on what they want. And for every one you buy, we will donate one.
Wow.
And we've got a reduced price anyway on it for us. So there's a veteran's price, and then we will donate one per. So if you buy 100, we donate 100 in addition.
Wow. And so just between you and me, if I just wanted to give one, I could just pay for half of this, and you could donate the other half, right?
We'll do it however you want to do it.
I do want to connect you with several people that I know that they're involved with veterans organizations. I know that there's so much that can be done there, and so much that we need to do, and what a tangible way.
Well, it's one way to say thank you,
Yeah.
because my dad, was a Vietnam vet, and so when those guys came back, they did not exactly get a thank you parade,
Yeah.
and so it's just one way to say thanks. And then we're also working on ways to get them to deployed military personnel through downloads and what have you. So
Yeah.
we'll see how that
American
goes.
Warrior Initiative is one that I work with some, and I will definitely
Thank you.
Connect you with Louise and Sean and these guys. This is such a great.
Well, it's positive, and
collection.
there are some background voices on there, but there's nobody in your face yelling these words. It just kind of makes you want to sing along with it. It's a really inspirational kind of sound, and of course I come from Kate Smith, singing
Sure.
"God Bless America"
Yeah.
from those, and I thought that was great, But this is guitar, and it's beautiful, and it's a nice little thing. So thank you. That's enough about it.
I've known Larry, Rooney, and Steve for a while. I didn't know their dad was a Marine.
Yeah, and he's in his 90s, and he's as feisty a man as I've ever seen. I saw him at the cafe. We have a little meet and three in Brentwood, Tennessee there
Sure.
that we go eat at every now and then. Yes, to all my English teachers, I just said we go eat at.
Yeah, I felt Polly cringe somewhere in the universe. The boys call her our grammar Nazi.
Yes, the preposition sergeant. So I saw him down there not long ago, and he's full of vim and vigor, and that day turkey and dressing, and he's just a wonderful man. But Steve, God bless him, Steve, and Steve and I go to church together, and a wonderful man, and just spurred that idea. And I've called a couple people since then, 3 or 4 actually, and said, hey, is this worth you saying, yeah, I want to be a part of? Does this sound like something?
Yeah.
And it does. And here again, it's just one way to say thank you. But
There's something different about Marines. I got to tell you what
Yeah.
I'm thinking. And
Yeah.
I know you have lunch with Steve every now and then,
Yeah.
so tell him about this story.
I'm not telling him anything.
Okay. Well, you don't have to. Just give me his number. I'll call him myself. The very first special operations commander that I worked with was a guy named General Michael Woolley. And Mike, he was just, not only was he just an American hero, this was a guy, it just became such a great friend. I just love Mike and Kathy to this
Right.
day. We keep up. He's retired now, but he was the AFSOC, the Air Force Special Operations Commander, and head of the whole deal. And I met his parents. One time, Mike was given the Order of the Sword, which is a huge, huge honor from the Air Force. And so I sat at a table with his parents. And so I was just talking to Mike and asking about his parents before Polly and I would sit at the table. I just wanted to know some. And the dad was a sergeant in the Marines, wounded on Iwo Jima.
Oh, my.
And so when Mike joined the Air Force, right? And so at one point, Mike was able to call his dad and say, Daddy, I just wanted to tell you that I just got my first star. And now
Oh,
Mike
wow.
ended up as like 3-star.
Yeah.
You know? But he said, I just want to tell you, I got my first star. I made general. And his dad said, well, that's good. I'm really proud of you. And I'm happy because I've always thought a general in the Air Force was about equal to a sergeant in the Marines.
No way! No, that is funny.
Isn't that a great story?
That is funny. Oh my gosh.
Sheesh. Well, so what are you working on now? You're still.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in the middle of the great hunkering, so I know you're not touring.
Great hunkering.
But if everybody goes hunker down, wasn't the Great Depression? Now we got the
that's
great
funny.
hunkering. So
Isn't that the truth? Yeah, this is a strange time, and strange times are time for growth, time for opportunity, and so it's a little challenging looking for that, finding what that is in you, and growth always stretches you, growth hurts, and so we're growing, and I jumped at the chance to do some projects that I've wanted to do for a while, music projects, and then we're stretching in other ways too. So I've been in my studio working on guitar projects. That was the first one to come out, and we started that 3 years ago. And
Really?
so we finally got that out. We were able to do that, and then we have a hymns project called Instrument of Peace Volume 2 coming out. It's all quiet hymns played on just guitar. There's no orchestra in the back of this. It's just a guitar playing
show me
quiet
something
hymns.
like what it would be like.
So, I don't want to knock this table over here.
It only weighs 400 pounds. So
yeah,
you
just send me
take my legs off. If
Send
you,
me the bill. I'm sure what I'm getting paid for this show will cover it. But we took hymns like "'Tis So Sweet to Trust in Jesus," like. Brings back some memories, doesn't it?
How about that, Bob Woodall? I'm looking at Buddy is here today, hanging with us.
Good man.
Bob and I grew up together. You know, we were baptized the same night, and
Really?
we went to Sunday school, training union together, and RAs together. And you know, it makes me. And Bob and I have kids the same age,
Mm-hmm.
and so it makes me wonder sometime if our kids are going to grow up knowing these hymns.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and hearing these hymns. I mean, because I can just call them up from my childhood, but
There's a great line from Bill Gaither to Buddy Green one time. Buddy came to Christ a little bit later in life, and so he was in Jerry Reed's band, and,
Yeah.
and all that kind of thing, and found Christ.
he
and-
led Jerry Reed to the same
to the
decision.
Lord. Is that not the greatest story? So Bill would say, "Hey, buddy, you remember this hymn?" And he would play him a hymn, and Buddy would say, "No, that's great." And he would say, "Hey, what about this one? You remember this?" And Buddy would say, "No." And Bill said, "Boy, you guys that come to Christ late in life, you miss a lot of good music." Isn't that funny?
Oh my gosh, what is Buddy doing now? Where
So,
is he?
so Buddy is actually still writing music and traveling and doing his thing. Of course, he's kind of some time off right now and visiting with his daughters, and he just has a wonderful life. And he is a great lady. Vicky, his wife, is
Yeah,
just
I
the
just love
best.
Buddy and Vicky.
Yeah,
Man.
they're sweet people.
And they, Buddy has some music for us on Wisdom Harbor.
Oh, yeah.
And I just, and one of them is the Shall We Gather at the River.
Isn't it the best?
That he does.
Yeah.
And I, when we put that on Wisdom Harbor, I did some research on that, and I didn't realize that was written as a song of peace during the Civil War. That it was picnics where people would gather and go down to the river, and
wow.
they put aside the business and put aside the arguments, and it was going to the river. And right in the middle of the Civil War, that song was written. Shall we gather at the river? Come on, let's realize who we are again, and let's get along. So how
wow.
many years have you been with Bill Gaither?
You know, we're coming up on 28 years now. Isn't that something? And that's a big chunk of my career. You know, I've been doing this for 37 years or something like that. But
Because you were a session player before.
yeah, and I've always traveled on the weekends with somebody. And so even when I was growing up in Kentucky, from the time I was 14 years old, I was on a bus on the weekends.
Are you serious?
And that's so that's 41 years ago. And groups like the Rock of Ages Quartet and the Gospel Messengers and all that. So I was always doing that.
So was it always gospel music,
Yeah.
or some of it country? What?
So on Friday and Saturday nights, I would go to a friend's house, or maybe we'd get 2 or 3 guys together in the kitchen, because the kitchen had pretty good acoustics. You had some surfaces.
Not
in
as
there,
good as a bathroom,
Not as good, but
couldn't get many people in the bathroom.
Have you ever seen a drum set in the bathroom?
That's
it just
true.
doesn't work.
It don't work.
So, and we'd play country music. There was a guy, Garnet Gaskin, had a little, you wouldn't know him, but he was great at teaching me songs like the Haggard tune and old Don Gibson songs, and George Jones, everybody. So I'd play that stuff on Friday and Saturday nights, and I really enjoyed listening to classical music and jazz music, and I loved pop, and I never got into the really hard rock stuff. That wasn't my bag. But if I ever played a music, if I stood on a stage and wanted to stand for something, make a statement, I always wanted that to be about Christ. That was a big deal with me. And so yeah, I always played gospel music. Ended up with the Blackwoods and Wendy Bagwell and the Sunlighters, which was a group that was huge in the 70s.
Yeah.
I was with them in the 80s on the backside of their career. But I'm telling you what, I learned so much. That was 5 years of my life. That was just the greatest. And Wendy was quite an entertainer, had a big million-selling record with a song called Here Come the Rattlesnakes. And it was about a story about singing in a church in Kentucky where they handled rattlesnakes.
Oh my God!
And it was huge. And so then,
Do you know? I just a little aside here.
Yeah.
You know, Montgomery Gentry is not a well-known song, but it's a great song, and it's about the same thing. And Montgomery Gentry did is praise the Lord and pass me a copperhead.
That's right. That's right. Well, you'll find some of those in Kentucky. They're still there. And so this was a funny story about that, and people latched onto that, And he was a Southern comedian who really found success in the churches. People just adored what they did in those stories. He had a story called 3 German police dogs and an old yeller cat at the Ebenezer Free Will Baptist, all day singing and dinner on the ground homecoming. That was the name of the story.
Oh my gosh!
It was that long.
Good grief!
And then I ended up doing sessions, which I love. I always aspired to be one of these guys, like Glenn Campbell. There, we were talking about these
Sure.
this set of guys in the studios who you never really know their names, but they were playing on all the records. And so in gospel music, there was a set of guys, that were doing that as well. And I moved to Nashville in about 87 or 88, and I met a guy named Bobby All. He was a session musician. Do you remember the intro to Trisha Yearwood's She's in Love with the Boy? And the intro was...
Yeah.
That's Bobby All. And played on Brooks and Dunn and all that stuff. Played on I'd Be Better Off in a Pine Box. All right, so that Doug Stone. And I met him on a TV taping, and I said, I've copped every lick you've ever played. I know what you do. And I said, you did this and you did that, really kind of tripping over my tongue. And he said, well, that's kind of cool and really strange all at the same time, And I said, wouldn't be any chance I could ever come out and hang with you on a session, would there be? And he said, yeah, why don't you? And I did that, and we became friends, and he taught me so much and began actually recommending me to producers. He'd say, if you can't get me, this guy sounds a lot like me.
Wow.
Now, that's a big compliment, and it was a lie. I was nervous. I didn't know what to do, but I was learning, and he began to farm me out, and I began to get work, and so down the road in 91 or 2, I met Bill Gaither on a recording session, and he was producing, and I was just a hired gun, the guitar player.
Right.
And then they booked me back for another record, another one, did 3, and then I got a call one day saying, "Do you want to go on the road with the Gaither Vocal Band?" Well, this is a group that I had idolized, from the Gaither Trio days on.
Right.
I would go to Lexington, Kentucky, to Rupp Arena and see the Gaither Trio when Gary McSpadden was a part of the trio.
McSpadden and Bill and Gloria.
Yep, and then I remembered the records with Bill's brother Danny from the early days, but I never saw that trio. Gary was there by the time I saw them, and I remember hearing songs at youth camp like "I Am Loved, I Am Loved, I Can Risk Loving You, for the one that knows me best loves me most." And I heard "Something Beautiful."
Oh yeah.
"Something Good," and all of these songs,
my parents were. My dad was a minister of music.
Right.
Now it's a worship leader.
Yeah.
Okay, but my dad was an actual minister of music, and my mom played the organ and the piano, and I grew up listening to Bill and Gloria stuff. And so when I got to be friends with him, I was like, it's almost shook up or something. My parents passed away when I was 19.
They're legendary.
And so even today, when I'm around Bill and Gloria, I think of my parents. I think they would just be laughing like crazy that I actually know these guys.
Isn't that something? Yeah. They're amazing people. And I was scared when I first met Bill, too, and I didn't know how to take him. He's very focused, I've never seen anybody quite as focused as he is when he is on developing a piece of material. At the moment, he is. You're a creator, and I am too. And anybody listening out there, creators are a little weird sometimes. We get a little.
That's what Polly says.
Strange. So everybody has their own process, and you just kind of learn that in working with artists. You learn that too. But Bill is amazing to watch when he's developing something, whether it's a melody or he's even trying to fit a song to a singer or whatever. He's just gifted in that way. And I think the building could be burning down and he wouldn't know it at that moment. He's so focused and
I
intent.
could see that. Yeah, I could see that.
So went on the road with the Gaither Vocal Band.
Who were the first guys in the vocal band you were with?
That was Bill Gaither and Michael English, Mark Lowry, and Terry Franklin, wonderful singer, was singing tenor at the time. And this would have been toward the end of '92.
Mark just kills me. I just think Mark is the funniest person.
Mark is a beautiful soul and tremendously funny. And they say, people always ask, is he like that all the time? Well, no, he's not like that all the time.
He's worse. He's worse. I mean, Mark is so ADD, he makes me look just like in slow motion,
Mark's just one of the deepest thinkers I've ever met, and yet one of the funniest human beings, one of the most life of the party kind of guys. Mm-hmm. But it's all when that switch flips for him. You can't say, okay, be the life of the party. He's not that guy, He's just a human being that has so much to offer the world, and I'm so thankful that he wrote some of it down and wrote some great songs. And I love his the Hyper Mouse books. You remember reading those?
Yeah.
How many children been affected by Piper?
And Mary, did you know?
Oh,
that's Mark and Buddy Green.
Yeah, it is.
Mark did the words, Buddy did the music.
Buddy wrote that beautiful melody, and I think Mark had handed that lyric off
to a bunch of people.
Yeah,
right.
And it had never really satisfied him. And Buddy wrote that. Mary, did you? It's almost like the Beatles kind of thing. I mean, it's got that, or that Hotel California kind of vibe.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a little bit of that even, but Buddy, he's just incredible, and that connected for one of the best Christmas songs of the 20th century, I think we've ever heard.
Oh yeah, that's I mean, I think 5 years ago, I talked to Mark, and it's like the last count they had was something like 500 and something people had recorded it.
Right.
It was just like ridiculous. So that is just awesome. So
I run off copies for my friends all the time.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, me too. And I sign them, Mark Lowry, to my friend Bob Woodall. Mark Lowry. Yeah. So who, if you look at your career, do you have any idea how many album collections you've been on, or how many?
Yeah, there's some of that stuff in the bio, and I can't even remember what it is. I've obviously played on.
See, I should have read your bio.
Well, I should too.
People say, well, here's. Yeah, in fact, they tell me this. Here's Kevin's bio. I said, I don't need Kevin's bio.
I got Kevin. He'll know this stuff.
Kevin all the time. Yeah, so
I don't know.
Is it in the millions? You've been on millions of albums, more than Elvis and the Beatles.
I have no clue. I would say there's 1,500 albums at least, and then
golly.
They say 100 and it's over 120 gold and platinums, and over probably a couple million units sold.
Really should have read your bio.
I don't know. It's stuff, and it doesn't even sound real to me. But over time, things add up over 28 years or 35 years or whatever, and very, very grateful to have been a part of that. But I'm even more grateful for the stories and memories, along the way. I got to play on a Conway Twitty album one time.
Really?
And it was after Conway had passed, and
so he wasn't there?
He was not there.
Okay.
But I got to play on Hello, Darling.
Conway had left the building.
He left the building. But I have a Conway story nonetheless. But
tell me.
Anyway, so this was an Armed Forces master they had or something, I think, and they re-released it, and they added guitar and piano to it. You couldn't hear that in the original mix. And so they brought me and Ron Oates in to play piano. And so I got to hear, "Hello, darling. Nice to see you." And I did the whole part. Oh, gosh, it was just great. But I actually met Conway when I first moved to town. I was living in a little apartment complex in Goodlettsville, Tennessee.
Right.
And Conway's daughter was having a wedding reception or bride shower, something over there. And so Conway pulls in the little T-Bird with the hat and the shorts on and the perm. You know the picture of Conway that we all know.
I knew Conway, yeah.
He pulls in, and I'm coming out of the laundry room with socks and underwear in a laundry basket, right? I lived there,
right?
And so I'm a little nervous because here's the T-Bird pulling in, and here's the necklace and the whole thing. And I dropped something, didn't realize it. I'm going, and I hear, "Hey," and I turn around, and Conway has a rolled pair of my socks. He said, "You dropped your socks." That's my Conway story.
That's your Conway story.
He didn't know I was going to play on his record years later, but that's my Conway story.
That would have been great.
And it was like a lifesaver moment because I said, I turned my head and I said, "Thanks, Conway." That was.
Oh wow! It's almost like the Coca-Cola commercial.
It almost was.
Thanks,
yes.
Mean Joe.
That's right.
Oh my gosh!
Isn't that great?
Conway would.
What was his name? What was his real name?
I forget, but I remember how he got the name.
He's named after Conway, Arkansas, and Twitty, Texas, and his real name was Harold Lloyd Jenkins.
Harold Lloyd Jenkins. He would refer to himself in the third person.
He would, yeah. He would say, Harold might like that, but Conway won't.
Yeah. So I watched you last night at my house with Austin.
What a kid.
Watching you guys play the guitar at the same time. And what I was really interested in watching was watching Austin watch you. And so there are millions of people who start to play the guitar. And there are millions of people probably who can say, I can play the guitar. When I was doing comedy, I learned to play enough guitar so that people would think I could play the guitar.
Sure, right.
I learned 4 or 5 chords. And so I would somewhere in the middle of my show, I would pick up the guitar and I'd put the strap over and I'd play and I'd do a couple of impressions but I would keep doing my material. I just had the guitar with me, and then after 15 minutes, I'd put it down. And because I just, I think you can't just stand up there for 60 minutes. It's just boring.
Right.
But he played the guitar. He did. And of course, I didn't
great.
really play the guitar.
Right.
I could just do, several chords. But what was the difference for you? Did you just sense that you had a gift for doing it? Did you just have a love for it that made you just practice all the time? What?
I knew that I was supposed to be a guitar player. Now, this is a powerful statement for planting images in the minds of children, but I'll tell you how this came about. I remember from time we grew up. I'm the one here. I grew up in Kentucky, and we didn't have very much money. We lived in a little trailer park in a beautiful little town called Russell Springs, Kentucky. And my mom and dad worked hard. I had that on my side. I had role models. But we just didn't have money. We were below the poverty line. I remember seeing that when the forms came home for lunch at school, and it added up to this column that said poverty over here. And so I knew we just didn't have a lot of money. And so what is a kid supposed to make out of that? Either you resign yourself to it's always going to be this way, or you decide, I'm going to make something out of my life. And I was that kid. And there was a picture that hung in my bedroom it was a dollar store picture that I'm sure my mom bought for $1. And it was like a British Beatles-looking guy with a red coat and a slender tie, and he's playing a guitar up like this. And it's just a generic kind of hand-painted looking thing. Just a piece of decor, cheap decor. And I thought, that's what I'm supposed to be. And I would watch Buck Owens and the Glenn Campbell Good Time Hour, and I would watch Johnny Cash's show and anything I could watch that had a guitar player on it. And I was dragging a guitar around in diapers, and I couldn't do anything until I was 12 years old, and we found a guitar teacher. He was Bill Monroe's banjo player.
Really?
He only played one season with Bill because he didn't like traveling. He wasn't cut out for that. His name's Larry Beasley. He's my friend to this day. And I do an event in my hometown every year, and Larry comes out and plays the banjo with me. We do dueling banjos on that every year.
Gosh.
Me and my guitar teacher. Is that not cool? So he taught me to play bluegrass. That kind of thing. And I learned that. I loved that style, and I loved Flatt and Scruggs, and I grew up, in the bluegrass state, loving that too. So began to venture into all of these styles. None of my friends were listening to classical music, but I was drawn to that, even though that was not a guitar music kind of thing.
But you can do it on the guitar.
Yeah.
Show everybody. I want everybody to see you can.
Oh, I remember the thing I played for you was a. It's like a little Baroque piece, but I was always drawn toward that, and I think something about my dad saying you can be anything you want to be, and me looking at that cool guy in that little picture, and even shows like the Partridge Family, kind of things like that.
Oh yeah.
And what was interesting, this is very funny, and it's stupid, but it's funny. I would watch the Partridge Family, and I would get my guitar out, and I would pretend like I had keyboards over here too, and I didn't have keyboards.
You were wanting to be Lori?
Thank you.
You got Keith there. You wanted a keyboard.
I feel like I'm working alone.
Well, it's just like you're my friend. I have to give you a hard time.
So I would set up a calculator and a little portable typewriter and pretend that those were keyboards, musical keyboards.
Huh.
Now, if you go to my setup on the stage of the Gaither stage today, I have my guitars over here, and I have all of the electronics that I run on the left side, exactly where those little things sit. And so I think there's an argument to be made of visuals and planting seeds in kids' minds of potential. And so that worked out for me, and I began to see myself that way. And years later, it was a prophecy. It just came true. I worked really hard, but God opened up a lot of doors for me that I didn't necessarily have the talent for, maybe even the communication skills for, whatever at the time. But I was hungry, I was out there trying to
Sure.
get it done, and Nashville's a hard place to kind of break through, and found a little niche and worked for a lot of years, and then it's turned into this whole thing with humor and communicating and whatever, and I feel like that's the next phase. And you ask what we're working on, I'm working on a new stage of influence now. Hopefully, have something different to say to people.
Yeah.
A different way to say it. Thank God he gave me tools like a guitar and a bag full of jokes, to
You work with a lot of my favorite people, the Ziglar family.
Oh, my
You were
gosh.
Tom and
Tom,
Cindy and
yeah.
Julie, the whole bunch.
So Zig was a mentor of sorts to me, even though we didn't have this one-on-one kind of thing, but I studied all his material. When I was 19, I was working in radio in Kentucky, small market radio, and I was selling ads on the side, and I wanted to figure out how to make more money and be a better salesman. I was good at the technical stuff and selling and people skills, persuasion, I was kind of lacking. And so I'd read his book on secrets of closing the sale. And I went to see him in person, $25 ticket in Kentucky, to Lexington, Kentucky. And it was an all-day thing. And he shared his faith publicly. You know, Zig was open about who he was and his strong faith. And I was sold. I said, I want to be that when I grow up, you know.
Heck yes.
And so now, thank God, there's a generation of people like yourself who were also influenced by Zig, who are carrying on that legacy. And I am what they call a Ziglar legacy speaker and trainer now. I've been through, they have courses and training through there that certify you to be able to talk to people about their material and also to empower what you're doing in your own way. So that's kind of where I landed on all that, and I'm glad to represent that. Many years later, after seeing Zig, probably 25 years later, I got to introduce him on our stage. And it was at Family Fest in Gatlinburg.
Right.
And I brought Zig up, and I held up my See You at the Top book that he had signed with a scripture that says, I am the vine and you are the branches. And I pulled out my little ticket that he had signed that day, you know, and I got to say thanks. Saying thank you is important to me, to people who have been there for me, you know, through my life. And that was just a wonderful moment for me. And I've got a picture and captured it all.
That was the first place that I met Zig and Gene.
I didn't realize
It was
that.
a Family Fest in Gatlinburg.
Wow.
I came off stage, and my wife had been sitting the entire time. Every time my eyes would cross over Polly, she would be looking up at me and going, pointing. And I had no idea what she was talking about. And, you know, come to find out, which I'm glad I didn't, because if I'd have known Zig Ziglar was in the audience, I'd have fainted, you know. But I remember that was a morning thing. And so we talked, and I asked him, I said, is there any way this evening we're going to bring our boys back? And, you know, Austin and Adam were little guys. Austin was like maybe 7 or 8, and Adam was like 5. And I said, I would really like the boys to meet you. And, you know, of course he said yes. And so I've got pictures of that.
Oh, yeah.
I remember, you know, going in that night, and he was so great with the boys, because, you know, he was like, I saw you coming around the corner. I can spot a winner a mile away.
I know.
And I said,
you do a great imitation.
I said, guys, what did I tell you about Mr. Ziglar tonight as we were driving over? And Austin said, you told us that we were going to meet the greatest speaker who has ever been and who ever would be. And Ziglar goes, well, I don't know if I would say that.
That's
it
great.
was perfect.
Oh, my gosh. You do such a great Zig.
Wow.
He showed up, you know, he would just buy a ticket and come to the concerts.
Sure,
He wouldn't say, hey, we're coming, or he'd buy a ticket. He bought his ticket through Ticketmaster, okay? It's just the craziest thing. And we'd look out and go, that's Zig Ziglar. Look at that. He's 40 rows back, you know? But he showed up to do a morning or an evening plug for the next morning. And so he was going to do a little tease kind of thing to give you a little sample of what you might get the next morning when he did the full, you know, hour. So he came up by me as Bill was introducing him, and he takes off his watch and hands it to me where I sit on the stage there, and he says, I'm going to talk for 7 minutes. And he said, you flagged me at 6. You hold up one finger at 6 minutes. And so I did that. I did my job. I held up the one finger. He came off right at 7 minutes because he was aware of people's attention spans and what he was there to do. So now my whole job, right, is to do this.
What?
You know, I did that. He comes down. He takes his watch. He said, you did good. Great.
Oh, my gosh.
I shared a story. So David Wright is the head coach at Ziglar, and he's become a dear friend of mine, and he actually wrote the coaching material for Ziglar International and what they're doing with the Legacy program, and it's fascinating, and I would love for you to meet David sometime. You'd have some great stories to
Every now and then I talk to
share.
Tom and Julie. Cindy and I keep up with each other.
Oh, they're just the best. They're just the best. Cindy, when I was getting ready to go out there for a week one time Tom was the one I knew the least. I knew the girls because they would go with their mom and dad to our concerts and things. Tom rarely did that. And of course, Tom's the CEO of the company, and so he's kind of handcuffed there. And so they called me and they had me a speakerphone. And Tom said, "Kev, we're really glad you're coming out to Dallas." And Cindy said, "Kevin, Tom has no idea." And it's just so sweet, so funny.
When we ate with them, Polly and I ate with them one night. That Italian restaurant there in Gatlinburg.
Best.
I can't think of the name.
You're talking about in the little center there?
Yeah, in that little
the
center.
best.
Okay.
Best Italian.
Okay. And we ate in this little back room, and I never will forget. I thought this was the funniest thing because Cindy and Julie were there, right? And so here's their dad. Now, my boys were not as old then as they were now.
That makes sense.
I never thought that certainly I would never embarrass my kids, right? My kids would never be embarrassed by me.
Sure, of course.
But I got to watch, and I just thought this was the funniest thing because, Zig is just being Zig, and Polly and I are sitting there like, oh my gosh. But there was somebody said something, and I don't know what it was. Maybe the word was treasure. Somebody said, well, that is a treasure. And we saw, Zig pull something out of his pocket. He had a pen, and he had a little pad. And he said, I like to take words, and sometimes T is for the time we spend together. R would be for being real. E, and he did the whole thing. And I remember Julie just almost putting her head on the table, and she looked at me just like apologizing. And Julie goes, Dad, he always does that. And I'm like, God, don't be.
And you're having a moment.
We're like, oh my God, I'm gonna steal it and frame it.
That's right.
And she's like just horrified. Daddy.
It's so funny. I know, that's hilarious. But what it would have been like to have Zig Ziglar for your dad.
I don't know.
What would have been like to have Conway Twitty for your dad. Think about that.
Yeah. But Zig is the dad. There's two sides to it. I understand because. What you do publicly. Because he wasn't. He had the wisdom, but he wasn't going up to Tom and Cindy and Julian. You got to keep pumping the pump. He's not screaming at them like he is us. But it would have been cool. I think they probably more. They appreciate him more now than they ever did.
Oh, for sure.
Which is just, that's a state of humanity. Mm-hmm. We tend to appreciate what we can't touch and what we can't be with anymore.
And thank God we still have his wisdom, though. And I still quote Zig proverbs to my kids, and we still have those. You were endowed with the seeds of greatness, and those little quotes.
You can have anything you want as long as you help
enough other people get what they want.
As long as you help enough other people get what they want.
That's exactly right. Oh, and it's inspiring to listen to him. And he was on the forefront of not just the positive thinking movement. We had Norman Vincent Peale and people kind of preaching that sermon too, but. When it comes to self-improvement, and he had, what did he call the automobile university or whatever, where you're listening to things that would improve your life. And thank God he did, because then it brought the whole way for books and audios like what you've been a part of to be able to enhance people's lives and give them concepts that'll change your thinking. If you can change it up here, it'll change out here, I
heard a great story from a friend about Norman Vincent Peale that I've never forgotten, and I thought one of the great just speaker moments to have been there. He was at some convention, and he was a young speaker, and Norman Vincent Peale was very old, and it was like close to 90, and he had gone on stage, and my friend was pretty cocky, and he was thinking he was, everything and more. And so he's watching Norman Vincent Peale go on stage. And Norman Vincent Peale, it's up there, and he has a bunch of note cards. And he goes, there's one thing that I believe that a speaker probably would like to gain. And it's a concept that if people, and my friend is sitting there watching, he's going, man, this is awful. I can't believe this,
Right.
And Norman Vincent Peale's, he's looking at his note cards and he's kind of shuffling through them like he's trying to find something. And he goes, if we could each somehow gather this principle for the other, if we could somehow gain into our relationship, there's one, and he's shuffling through them, and my friend's going, "This is embarrassing, come on now, really."
Right.
And so Norman Vincent Peale, he's like, he can't find. He said, "It's one thing," and then he drops the cards.
Oh.
And there's
Probably the
cards,
best thing that ever happened.
yeah, so cards like falling. So now he's going, it's one thing that if we could get, and then he stands up and he goes, empathy. And everybody goes, oh my God. And my friend's like, oh. He'd just been totally just.
We got it.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's
Isn't that
brilliant.
great?
That's brilliant. I never heard that story. Wow. I love how you have been able to tell. You're such a gifted writer, and you're able to weave stories. It seems like stories that just tug at all of us in different ways. But the way you've woven also into these character principles that I think Zig would have really hung his hat on, and life principles in general, but character and integrity things that we can all learn from. And they're subtle sometimes. Andy, you write them so subtly in there, but they're strong messages, I think, in the end, to all of us. And you're to be commended on not just how you do your craft, but the fact that you're called to do that. I think that's beautiful.
You're kind. And I wonder sometimes about that word gifted, because I know that there is a gift that you have now. And you and I look at Gordon Mote, you can't call that anything but a gift.
It's struck by lightning.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You're 2.5 years old, and you're sitting down at the first piano you ever put your hands on and playing Away in the Manger with or Jesus Loves Me with two hands. That's a gift. But I struggle with what I do. I am like the slowest writer in the world, and I obsess over each phrase, and I've watched you over the years, work, because you're working to make the guitar easy. You're working to make the words. I've watched you on stage, and you have become, that voice with Gaither. That banter back and forth. You transitioned the shows, and to make that look like you make it look. It's not a gift. That's just hard work. You have an ear for it, but that's so much thought, so much hard work that goes into that.
You know how important a word can be, and whether you were a comedian constructing a joke or you're writing a book, one word can make a lot of difference. And I will say something at sometimes in addressing an audience, or even in a bit with Bill. And then I'll think, tomorrow I'm going to change that and it'll just be one word.
Yeah.
But the laugh will be bigger, or the impact will be,
That's exactly right.
And so you're always refining, I think, in that process.
Jeff Allen is a mutual friend of ours.
Yeah.
I think Jeff
What a good guy.
is probably the best technical comedian I've ever seen.
Yeah.
His material, it sounds so natural, and yet you and I know, because we've heard Jeff many times, he is a master at the illusion of spontaneity, and his material is like a song. And I heard him one time, and I nudged Polly, and I said, remember this place, because I want to tell you something about it later. That he just, we all just trip over a word every now and then.
Yeah.
And he just tripped over a word, and the laugh was maybe about a fourth of what it normally was.
Right.
And I knew he knew.
Right.
It was because that song wasn't as perfect as it could have been. And it was interesting because he is so good. Jimmy Urey is a songwriter that you and I both love.
Right.
And Jimmy, is a master of choosing the right word. And Jimmy told me, you know, when we started writing together, the first time I ever did anything like that with him, he said, you know, everything has been said. You know this. He said, everything has been said. We just got to say it a different way. Mm-hmm. He said, we got to find a way to touch people in a different way. And his example that I think is brilliant, he said, I can say, I loved my dad, or I can say, I love the man who taught me how to fish.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
Isn't that cool? He said, one you understand, but the other gives you a picture.
Oh, well said. Wow,
so
that's great.
I always thought that was beautiful.
Let me tell you a funny story. You're talking about Jeff Allen. Now, Taylor Mason was also on our tour for
Taylor
quite a
and
while.
I did college dates together years ago.
Oh, talented, extremely talented, crazy-brained, wonderful individual.
Even though I don't really trust ventriloquists, but go ahead.
They'll talk about it both sides of their head. But so we were in Anaheim one night at the Pond in Anaheim, and we probably had 15,000 people there for a Gaither homecoming. And I was doing a bit every night where Bill would we were giving away something, free tickets or something, I don't know what it was. And he would come over to me and he'd say, and what do we have for him? And I'd say, matching set of Samsonite luggage. And I just had a little thing, and they would laugh, and I would say, a lifetime supply of Rice-A-Roni, the San Francisco treat, you know. And so they would laugh. And it's kind of stupid, you know, as we sit here and say, but it was a laugh. It was cute. Did that for a couple months, and didn't realize that night, I knew it, but I never ran it through my brain to alter the joke, that Anaheim was playing San Francisco the next day in a big ball game going on. And so there were a lot of people there to see that ball game the next day that were there that night. And so San Francisco was not something you'd want to bring up.
Right.
You know. So I'm getting ready for that joke, and out walks Taylor. And you know this as well. There's nothing quite so fulfilling to see another comedian bomb. You know, that's just a beautiful moment. You want to preserve that.
Yeah, it's the entertainment thing. You like something great, and you like a disaster.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm sitting down here with my guitar, and they've got a camera on me. Next thing I know, Taylor sitting on stage with me and pulls up a chair right here. I said, what are you doing out here? He said, just thought I'd come out. So gets to the thing, and I say, Rice-A-Roni, the San Francisco treat. There's an immediate beat where there's nothing as they are inhaling to boo me. And I had 15,000 people booing me, and the loudest
and didn't know why.
Oh, I knew immediately why.
You?
I just hadn't run it through my brain. And then I start laughing at how horrible this was. And they're booing me, and I'm laughing. I'm going, oh, poor choice of words, you know, and it's hysterical. And Taylor starts folding his chair up to leave, and I said, what did you come out for? He said, train wreck.
Yeah, train wreck. There you go. Oh, my gosh.
He knew exactly what was going to happen. He said, you are so methodical in your approach, and you are so calculated, I knew you wouldn't change a thing.
I knew you wouldn't change a thing. Oh, my gosh.
Will
you play one thing for us, and then we'll go. I appreciate so much you being here.
But I want to stay.
Well, we can do, you know, episode 2. We can do part 2. We can end it on a cliffhanger.
Oh, I grew up hearing all these hymns, and I just sometimes when I pray, I don't know all the right words to use. You know, I've grown up in the church. I'm a Baptist deacon. And
are you really?
I am at our church, Brentwood Baptist, there in Brentwood, Tennessee. And I love that. I love getting together to minister and pray with people. And sometimes I don't know the words. I just be honest with you. And I know God knows them. And so there was a time when my mom was passing about 5 years ago, and I was sitting in the nursing home as she was deteriorating in her last days. And I would sit there and I would pray. I started out praying vigorous prayers and kind of passed beyond that. And then it moved to just days of just quiet. And I would sit there and play hymns on my guitar next to her bedside. And I would play like Sweet Hour of Prayer. And there was at one point she was coming in and out of consciousness. She never opened her eyes. She kept them closed, but she began to raise her hand up a little bit. And I thought, oh, this is it. She's going to say something profound here. This is it. And I'd cried all my tears and said all my words, and I was ready for whatever this moment held, And she reached over, and this is not a joke. It's actually, she reached over and she touched my strings and went, "That's enough." It was the God's honest truth. That is so my mom. It was the last words I ever heard my mom say. It couldn't have been better.
That's enough.
And within 2 more days, she crossed over. And it's a great memory for me to know that I played songs like that, and she responded like that. That couldn't have been any more appropriate,
I hope you put that on her tombstone.
That's enough.
Somebody asked me the other day, "What do you want on your tombstone?" And I said, I wanted them to put on my tombstone, "I told you I was sick."
Exactly. But that's one of those moments in life, and I'm glad my guitar was there, and I'm glad my mom had a sense of humor.
What a great story.
It was perfect, yeah. So I don't say that to be tacky in any way. I just say that to say embrace life while we have it. Yeah, we're in a pandemic. Yeah, I don't know how to pray through this thing either, but God knows, and it's good. So what about this? I could do, this was the old invitation hymn.
Thank you, Kevin.
Isn't that beautiful?
Thank you, buddy. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I appreciate it so much.
I enjoyed this, and I love you, Andy Andrews. You know that?
You're very kind, or you're fooled, but thank you very much. I'm Andy Andrews, the professional noticer, harnessing common sense and wisdom to plow through challenges all the way to an answer for you. Hey, quick question. Where do you seek wisdom? Knowledge, wisdom, 2 different things, right? So you can go to the encyclopedia or just to the regular old internet to seek knowledge. But you want wisdom? Allow me to suggest wisdomharbor.com. That's wisdom, Harbour. Go there now. Be welcomed by someone you will recognize. Get your little 5-minute guided tour. Then get your 30-day free membership, and then become a real member of Wisdom Harbor. It's only $17 a month. Do it for your family, your business, and your schools. wisdomharbor.com. And I think that'll do it for this week. Get us out of here, Matthew. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to the boys and girls who aspire to become ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of another episode of The Professional Noticer. In a world where common sense has become a superpower, I'm harnessing what tiny bit of mental energy I have for you, seeking wisdom, making observations, and endeavoring to answer tough questions in a way that will empower your family and your business. I'm Andy Andrews. Until next week, smile while you talk, even behind your mask. Don't breathe anybody else's air, but make sure you have a positive answer to the question, how's it going? And so, until next week, goodbye. This episode of The Professional Noticer was produced by Matt Limpert. The Noticer theme written and performed by Sugarcane Jane. Discount cruise tickets provided by Twinkle and Smoke of Beverly Hills. Additional financial consideration provided by NameYourBusiness.com. Are you about to start a business of your own? Naming it is your first biggest decision. At NameYourBusiness.com, we won't let you screw that up. With wisdom gleaned from other people's horrible experiences, we create business names that keep people in business with words like first or platinum We're big on the word big, and the term wonder is always in consideration. We can promise that by utilizing the skills of our experts at nameyourbusiness.com, you'll never end up with a grout supply business named The Crack House or a dog walking business called Dog on a Rope. Restaurants are our specialty, and we never rely on terms like grub or goulash. So email us now for an estimate. We charge by the letter. That's nameyourbusiness.com.